everything. And those are all things that have to be discussed. It's not just like, hey, come play and bye, go home. It's all about setting up a program.
I want to move on to this right here as this thing keeps playing right through here. Okay, so now we're getting into some activities right here. Diego, I want to ask you this kind of before we go into this, and obviously Bill Hamid, what a dynamic athlete we got. John Kempen too. Yeah, I'm not giving anything away from John right there as well too. I don't want him to send me a horrible DM later on. But but here you're talking about Bill Hamid right here, right? So this is a veteran goalkeeper, at the highest of levels right here. Technical handling and coordination. Look at the focus that he's got right there. But he's still learning, as we all still are. But you still need to get results this weekend. So how do you balance those two?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we have to obviously find out who your opponent is, right? You have to scout them. You have to figure out their positives and negatives. What are they good at? Also, at the end of the day, we have to focus on ourselves, right? I think with Bill, he's done an amazing job this season to look at himself and get himself ready. I think he lost about 25 pounds coming into the season. So I give him props for that. He's taking care of himself off the field greatly. He's balancing his life in a great way, and I think it's shown in the first 5 games of the season. I think honestly he's been one of our better players, if not the best player on the field so far. And it takes a lot of hard work, on and off the field to have those performances. And he looks great. He looks focused. I'm excited to be able to work with him. He's received me greatly. He's opened his arms to me when he can easily have done the opposite. And we hit it off pretty well. Same thing with John. I think John is a great athlete. He's a true pro. I wish I had 50 Johns in the team. He's amazing, by the way.
Wait, hold on. How heavy are those med balls?
You know what? You really were in the corner, though. When you guys were in the stadium, I'm like, wait a minute, he's really in the corner.
I wasn't
He wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
I think what's really great about this, and you were talking about the focus, and I think what you find, obviously you're talking about the top of the top, the elite level here. And what we find with a lot of young players is they try to get to the end result and not focus on what they're doing. So if you watch these clips, it's like, I'm focusing on my footwork now. I'm focusing on my movement, over the hurdle. And then I'm focusing on, where's my final action with the catch? Am I holding on to the ball? And a lot of times, if like in young players, if they see this, they'll go, okay, I got to get to that power dive or that upper, that's all they're thinking about. So they kind of like rush through their footwork, don't focus, and it's all a part of it. And I love that the intensity and the focus here. And that's what all young players need to see, that everybody does this. Even the best of the best goes through this footwork, this intensity, and this focus.
Yeah, it's one action at a time, right? We got to
absolutely
one action at a time. It doesn't matter if I move on to the next one if I just did the first one wrong, especially when you're starting to drill, right? Your foundation is your everything to what's coming up next. So make sure you have a good foundation.
My favorite is also they try to do it so fast. I'm like, did I say it was fitness? I'm like,
But no, I think you just brought up a really good point, Saskia, because as we're kind of progressing into this, the strength work that you're incorporating into the actual activities right here. Do you talk with the performance coaches when you're putting together these activities to make sure that they are going to be game realistic movements, even though you're incorporating this aspect?
Yeah, so with our strength coach, Victor, he does an amazing job. We have a great relationship, and we have incorporated the technical aspect with the gym. At the end of the day, we're looking to do 2 to 3 sessions a week on strength. We want to separate the muscles that we're using every day. And we either do a ballistic move in one day with some type of throw, which is what's happening here. And then when we use the lower bodies, we want to make sure we use certain muscles that we're not going to use the next day. And then when we use strength, we want to take some power into it. So that's what you guys are seeing right now. We're seeing some kettlebell swings. And then we always have a transfer into speed, because at the end of the day, that's our position, right? We have to be quick. We have to be explosive. So yeah, that's kind of.
I want to go and train with you. This looks awesome. This looks like fun. This is just like fun.
You know, and it depends also, like for us, like I just had a meeting today with our strength and conditioning coach to set up the summer schedule for the goalkeepers for what I need for them for when they get back into the fall, like what to focus on, which is going to be totally different than the field players. And we had a long discussion about it, and I need more like explosive movements when they're not with us and everything like that. So these conversations must be had.
Yes, 100%. And we try to utilize everything on the field because sometimes you don't get the time, right? We don't get the time during the week. You might get 20 minutes a day sometimes. So if I go to the gym and then we come out on the field and they do a warm up, I get 10 minutes that day. So can I mix both of them and now incorporate the ball as well? So that's kind of where we are at the moment with our plan into the strength work and the goalkeeping training.
I have a question, Diego, in regards to like what we were just seeing here in regards to, you know, and I know we're going a little bit off the topic here, but I find this really fascinating because I love performance work. Is what match day minus what are we looking at right here? Because this is obviously not.
Match day minus 5 or 4, right?
Okay.
The first 2 days of the week. Imagine doing this the day before.
I was gonna say. I was like,
in 2 seconds. No, this is. Yeah, and with Bill, we had a good conversation with him that for me, I want him to work on, you know, we play Saturday. I need him to come and work on Monday, right? Sometimes you take till Tuesday to get going. I think that's too much time. 48 hours of rest. You know, at the end of the day for goalkeepers, it's more of a mental fatigue, right? Than on your body, depending on the game, of course. You know,
I always laugh when I sign in and I see myself. I'm like, am I on already? Hey, Kevin, how you doing?
Kevin's not here yet. Scott.
I signed in and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm late. I started to panic. I'm like, they're already on.
There you are. Hey. No, I know. Mike has this thing and now I'm like,
Well, I mean, it's you know, it was a note that was given to me by a few people, and they said, you know, when you come on, there's dead air going on, and rather than you know, humming along with the chat as you're setting up the stream, maybe it's better for you to play something that's going to be beneficial to the community. So figured we'd go that direction. So
or maybe don't go live like 20 minutes before.
You have to though. That's how you set up
I'm
the stream though. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I love it. I was like, man, should I blow my hair out today?
Oh man. Todd, how's everything with you, man?
It's good. It's another day.
The jet setting world.
That's right. Yeah. It's been a busy, crazy day, as it always is in that industry. So, but it's fun.
What's the medal behind you?
The medal behind me? Oh, that's Emirates Cup. When I was at Red Bull, we played in the Emirates Cup against Arsenal and Boca Juniors and PSG, and somehow we won.
way to have faith.
We beat PSG, and then we tied Arsenal. I think it was 0-0, and they had the ball for probably 89 and a half minutes.
Hilarious.
I've been there.
Hilarious. Hilarious.
But it was a fun day.
Oh,
not with the national team. I was there in national semifinals in club, and I never let Julie Fabby live this down. They outshot us, I think, 18-2, and we won. And it's a very like touchy subject to this day when I bring it up to her.
Well, I remember the manager at the time was Hans Bacca, and we were chatting. I don't remember if it was that game or it was one of them where it was just so lopsided. And we were chatting at the after the game. I'm like, you know, if we played basketball, it would have won by 40. But in our sport, you know, it's 0-0. And it just happens. But in basketball, that is such a lopsided game. It's not even funny.
That's
absolutely.
Funny.
So,
Sus, can you do us a favor? Can you monitor the Union Sports chat? Is that possible? Because I can't monitor both.
Give me a minute.
So, no worries.
Be right back.
All good.
How's the weather in Cali?
It's warm, dude.
Yeah.
It's warm. I mean, I've been inside in air conditioning, so Kevin will probably have a better indication of what it's like since he's been out on the field, I'm guessing, than me.
I haven't been outside yet today, but it looks nice.
Yeah.
Looks nice out there. So I can't complain. It's the last couple of weeks have been pretty good. So.
Look at that.
Big Stan.
Big Stan.
I got to catch up with my man. I haven't talked to him in a little while.
Yeah.
So Stan, we need to catch up later this week.
Oh, big cat. Speaking of Big Stan, here's a big cat. Big Cat's here.
How are you guys?
Good, man. Good. We're just waiting for Saskia to return, and we will get going. Did you guys just hop off the field?
We've been off for an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've been off for a few minutes. I was able to get my wits about me until I got on, and I realized I don't actually ever use any of the browsers that are required for StreamYard. So that was convenient.
You gotta love it how they're all in cahoots, aren't they? They're clearly all in cahoots. They're like, well, you have to download this one just to use this product. I don't know what to tell you. You're like, there's got to be some sort of like squirrely kickback going on here. I don't know how this works.
the monopolies work.
Yeah,
and we're all just goalkeepers, so trying to figure that kind of stuff out is like next to impossible. I was in the same boat the last time I was on. I think it was. So.
Exactly.
How are you guys?
Good, man. Good. I'm excited for this. I know Todd is literally, and we'll talk about this once the show starts, but Todd was just giving glowing praise to you, Kev. Off the air. Yeah.
Yeah, I
guess you made quite an impression.
Todd, thank you.
I haven't seen or chatted with you in a little while, and when he's like, Kevin's coming on. And he's like, do you want to get on? I'm like, of course I'll get on with Kevin. So
I try to leave all these goalkeeping conversations to the experts most often, but I figured I'd hop on here for this this one occasion.
Dude, I love this topic. I think this topic is something that really needs to be stressed, especially like with a lot of young players out there. And we'll talk about that once the show starts. Let me just check and see how Saska's doing, and we will get this going.
Who do you guys got this weekend, Kevin?
I'm right here.
Oh, you are. Oh, my
We're taking off for New England.
I don't mean
out this way.
All right.
Hold on. I was trying to do. Never mind.
You can just do a different browser window or do it on your phone.
I was doing it on my other computer, but
gotcha.
I'm bougie like that.
Gotcha. All right.
Hold on. Just
talk amongst ourselves. Oh, hold on. There's a comment coming through here. Nice and hot here. Oh.
I was doing it on my. All right, there I am. There I am.
Okay. All right. You guys ready? Let's do this. Here we go. Welcome to Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me is a virtual superheroes Avengers style matchup of goalkeeper coaches and experts extraordinaire. We've got the one and only 99 World Cup winner Saskia Weber with her Angel City FC moniker right in the background right there. Guest panelist, you know him, you love him. He doesn't really need an introduction. He's been on the show, I think, 40 times. The one and only Todd Hofford. And joining us for this very special occasion, we have two gatos today. We have La Gata and El Gato, the one and only LA Galaxy goalkeeper coach, Kevin Hartman. What's up, dude?
How are you guys? Excited to be here.
I mean, honestly, we're really excited about this. First off, I think this topic is going to be really awesome. I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this. And another cool thing is the fact that you and Todd have a little bit of relationship back. So he's like, hey, do you mind if I hop on? It's really cool when people such as Todd like to say, hey, I really want to come on the show and just hang out with you guys.
Well, how could you not want to, hang out with the likes of all three of you? I mean,
I'm not paying
no brainer.
attention. I'm trying to set something up. I'm watching a game. No, just kidding.
That'd be hilarious if you were just watching
like-
another game. Well, I mean, the Champions League draw was already happened, so the Champions League qualifiers. By the way, shout out to Josh Cohen. I don't think a lot of people realize this, that Josh Cohen is an American goalkeeper playing for Maccabi Haifa over in Europe, over in Israel, and they're in the Champions League. And I think they got drawn with PSG and Juventus. So talk about a goalkeeper's dream, Kevin, American goalkeeper, to get to play against Leo Messi and Mbappe and Weston McKennie, obviously. I'm sure that was his dream his entire life.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see that legacy of American goalkeepers over in Europe finding some success. That was always the kind of MO when I was kind of coming through and had the opportunity to watch Brad Friedel and Casey Keller and Ian Foyer, and a bunch of the guys that were over there kind of plying their trade before we had access to professional soccer here in the United States. So it's cool that legacy kind of continues. The groups, the Israeli teams at Maccabi and some of the other cities there. It's actually a really interesting brand of football. We had the opportunity to host a number of the clubs when I was down at IMG for our super group, come down and play against Tottenham, and actually won a big match a few years ago. So it's cool to see that legacy kind of continue as we speak.
No,
Todd,
I agree. I agree.
Go ahead.
Kevin, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
No, I agree. And everybody's always said what's in the water in America with goalkeeping, period. We've always been able to excel overseas and in whether it's in the Premier League or wherever it is with the men. It's something we should be proud of.
And I think, one of the things too, Kevin, I love what you were just saying there in regards to, having experience against these different levels, the different leagues and everything like that. Todd, I mean, obviously, you've been coaching at the professional level and also at the youth level for so many years. I don't think there's a lot of young goalkeepers out there that recognize that there's opportunities for them overseas as well, and not just the Premier League and not just Serie A and La Liga. And, you can make a name for yourself in another league if the opportunity comes.
You certainly can. I mean, obviously the high profile is the Premier League or La Liga that everybody watches on TV on the weekends, but there is so many other leagues. I mean, you've got a lot of the lower leagues in England, the Championship. I've worked with a lot of goalkeepers, I'm sure Kevin has as well, that have gone over to Finland, going over to Denmark, going over, to some of these regions that you don't really think of as big powerhouse footballing nations, but they do really well. They have good, solid leagues. And it's a great league for especially a young goalkeeper to kind of, cut their teeth a little bit in the pro game and learn a little bit different type of style of play, especially off the cross, which is, as we all know, one of the biggest weaknesses in youth goalkeeping. And you go in the lower leagues in some of these Scandinavian countries, in England, in Germany, and it's all about the cross. And it is a very big learning experience for some of these goalkeepers to go and do that.
And by the way, Kevin, feel free to step in any time you want right here. But obviously, when you were coming up in the game and you were playing at a very high level here professionally, and obviously, a very established career that you had, it wasn't as open, I would say, for American goalkeepers to come over here. You were talking about, you had your national team keepers like a Casey Keller, Brad Friedel, but you didn't see a lot of young goalkeepers going over and joining academies and coming through lower divisions, did you?
No, I think, like you mentioned, that the goalkeepers that were over there were usually goalkeepers that had accumulated enough international caps that they were able to get work permits. That wasn't necessarily guys that had kind of figured out the more nuanced approach of having a grandparent, figuring out citizenship, having dual nationalities, et cetera, it's in the big business that it's really become. I mean, these were guys that were really kind of the heartbeat of the men's national team and had been able to accumulate either 50, 75% of the matches so that they were able to gain work permits in places that were really not easy to get work permits unless you could prove that you were capable of taking the job from an English citizen.
Yeah, I think that even for me going to Japan, I didn't get taken when I first tried out and stuff, because they had to weigh, we have 3 places on the team for international players. Are we going to put one as a goalkeeper? And it was like, do we pull like a midfielder and 2 forwards? And so you had to fight against that. So I think that you have to prove your worth in order to steal one of those work permits.
Yeah, and I think, that's a really good point right there, Saskia, in regards to, one thing that I've always heard, and Todd and Kevin, feel free to step in on this right now because you guys have more experience with this, is that you have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are better than a domestic option for them to give one of those international slots to you.
Yeah, no, I think that for sure, just from, it was interesting because I was talking to one of the assistant coaches the other day that I currently work with, and he was having some trouble getting back to Canada at some point during his time at Toronto. And they literally called him out. They're like, so what makes you so much better than our Canadian coaches? And the guy is obviously a humble guy. It's not going to be like, well, I can do this, I can do that. And it was actually pretty intriguing to kind of see all of the hoops that you kind of have to jump through to make these work permit things work. As things have really evolved, and being involved a little bit more with the academy for the past number of years, there's certainly situations where people are working ahead of it and making sure that they do have some of those things sussed out ahead of time by getting passports and figuring out nationality through their grandparents, et cetera. And I think that that's one of the reasons that you can really kind of identify where these American citizens are located. But to be honest, if you spend some time on Y Scout, you figure out some of the filters, you're able to figure out who has dual nationality, who has passports, and it really allows you to kind of look at to scout more effectively at this point. And so it's good to see these players getting experiences throughout top leagues and leagues within Europe. It really was extremely limited. Even when I was a senior in high school, senior in college was the first year that MLS was really coming about, and I felt really lucky to kind of have that opportunity and not have to go over and travel like many goalkeepers did, especially the generation that was even 3-4 years before I came along.
Mike, I got my dual citizenship to play.
Did you really?
So, yeah, I'm a Dutch citizen, and it's not my grandparents, it's my mom. And I fell under some weird rule or something. I was the first daughter. There's like all these weird, and I like $25 later in the embassy, and I had my citizenship. But it was because I was considering like, well, maybe I'll go overseas and coach or play. So
when I think and I think when Kevin was talking about the back in the day, the Casey Kellers and the Brad Friedels, Ian Foyers, they kind of set the groundwork that if you look at MLS today, I think on the flip side, I think it's great for the American goalkeeper because now they're in a situation here in MLS that it's the opposite. Yeah. In order for a foreign goalkeeper, they have to be that much more exceptional than the American goalkeeper. So I think it actually helps the American goalkeeper that we've had some guys that have gone across and done extremely well and kind of set a standard. Yeah. And the American goalkeeper is typically a lot less expensive when you have a salary cap issue that you got to deal with. You always have to, anytime a foreign player comes in, you have to pay more. So I think it truly benefits the American goalkeeper, which I think all four of us on this panel, we love American goalkeeping, and I think it's a great opportunity for them.
Well, I want to say this right now because a lot of people are probably like turning their heads right now because they're like, well, Jonathan Bond's the goalkeeper for the LA Galaxy. What are you talking about? But a lot of people, Kevin, don't know that Bondy has an American lineage, and that's how he was able to come over, right?
Yeah, his mother is an American. Grew up, might live actually currently up in the Seattle area. So I think it was one of the ways that we were able to expand our roster by also not necessarily having to delve too deeply into, our international spots. And Derek Williams was another player that came from the championship that has American citizenship that was what we were able to slide in at the beginning of last year. So those some of those more nuanced roster building moves are things where you're able to discover who's got some American lineage and who doesn't. I keep telling Bondy that I expect him to put his hand over his heart during the national anthem so that I can make a push for him to get more international looks, but he hasn't really been listening to me as of late.
Now, it's funny that you said that, Kevin, because Todd, one of the things that you were just talking about it, like cutting your teeth, overseas and then, coming back to the United States. I think it's really, really fascinating now that the United States, and obviously, you've been in MLS, and both of you guys have seen kind of the genesis of MLS to where it is today. And Todd, you're a little bit out of it. You can probably speak a little more freely than Kevin, so I'm not going to put him on the stand right here. But it's now becoming a destination league. I mean, it's literally a place people want to come and play.
It is, and it's exciting. You see some of the names and some of the windows now that are even rumored that you never remotely would have thought of before. It was a truly exciting time when I spent my days in MLS, and it's only going to get bigger. It's only going to get better. Hopefully, the money starts continuing to come into the league, which I'm sure it will. But it's great to see that it's not considered that quote unquote retirement league like they used to talk about back in the day. Where it is a destination, and now you're getting. I think those new DP rules that they stated have really, really helped with having some of the younger DPs. So you're getting some more of those younger players from South America, Europe, things like that are coming over, and they're looking at it as this is the time for them to really play and make a name for themselves. So that I think it's an awesome time to be part of the league or a fan or whatever. So, and I think the future is really, really bright. And hopefully this World Cup this winter is going to even springboard it even more.
Yeah. Let's hope on that. Guys, let's delve into this topic, because I know this is like a really meaty one right here. And I think everybody's got a lot of opinions on this. Today's topic is because of Kevin. Kevin's the one that came up with this. And I was like, this is way more brilliant than what I was thinking. It's indirect goal prevention, which is definitely something that a lot of people out there probably are like, that sounds very complicated. But in a succinct way, Kevin, can you explain what you mean by indirect goal prevention?
So when I break down goalkeeping, I view the techniques of goalkeeping maybe as solutions to scenarios that are inherent and they'll show up in matches, right? And so I consider direct threats to be anything that would be a shot or a breakaway type scenario. And then indirect threats would be cross balls, through passes, or anything where the goalkeeper is eliminating a goal scoring opportunity before it fully evolves. So that's how we would look at the defensive side. And then on the offensive side, we're either in possession of the ball or we're restarting possession. So that's kind of the way that I perceive the game. I know there's goalkeeping experts in England that have kind of started to kind of put these things in kind of a succinct way that you can kind of view it. I know Tim Dittmer did a little bit of work with it. And so, it's just a way to maybe get away from the technical side of it and really just allow you to think about things a little bit more from a tactical perspective and how they actually fall within a match.
Yeah. I love what you're saying right there. Stuskia, this is a conversation that I know that you've had in regards to when you're coaching at, the collegiate level and everything like that, because a lot of them come from a youth environment where they focus so much on the final action. And every goalkeeper that you go and see at a college ID camp has great technique when it comes to making a save on final action, but you put them in the game and you're like, oh, that was not the goalkeeper I just saw in training.
Yeah, the translation from a training goalkeeper into a game goalkeeper, not everybody can do it. And not everybody can take those tactical skills and technical skills and put them on the field in the run of play. And I agree, with Kevin said, there is a difference between through balls. They're not a direct threat. How are you cutting that off? Like, is it a direct breakaway on goal? Is it a direct shot on goal? I'm kind of on the cusp with corner kicks and stuff, because I feel, because as we just said in the beginning, people aren't handling the cross very well. I feel that it's just a restart. It's a free kick from a bad angle. That's how I look at it. It's the same. It's a direct threat to me. And I think that we see so many goals from a corner or a ball that's brought into the corner of the field, not even a corner, but into that area and served, and the runs on goal. I think that's a direct threat. Absolutely.
Yeah. By the way, there's a question in the comment section here that I want to throw in here before we kind of move on with this topic, because I think it actually kind of goes hand in hand with what we're talking about here. And I think the evolution of the goalkeeping position is a reason why you might be seeing less and less American goalkeepers heading over at least in the men's game right here. And that's from Itzik Rappaport right here from Mental Coach Pro. Itzik Rappaport, who just did a webinar for us yesterday on the union. And he says, you guys talked about what's in the water for American goalkeepers. Why do you think we produce world-class goalkeepers and less playmakers? Now, I want to change that. Say, why did we used to produce world-class goalkeepers and less playmakers?
Look at Todd. He's like, used to.
Yeah. Todd, you want to step in on that?
I mean, yeah, I'd be more than happy to. I think one of the big things for us, it's a more natural position, I think, for the average American, because we grow up basically playing so many games with our hands. Baseball, basketball, football, tennis. That general eye-hand coordination is, I think, a lot more natural for the American athlete, just because of the variety of sports we play. Now you bring in that general athleticism and you start to tie in some technique and a little bit of knowledge, and you've got the makings of developing some good young goalkeepers. And I think we did that for many, many years. And I think we kind of, in the men's and the women's side, I think we kind of rested on our laurels a little bit, just with that adage of, we've got great goalkeepers. And we stopped focusing on it. We lost kind of sight of what we needed to be doing. I'm hoping we are rekindling that a little bit now. In recent years, we've started to see some more, youth goalkeepers in the men's and women's games starting to climb the ladder a little bit. Hopefully that continues. But I think from the very, very top at our federation, we have to put a little bit more onus. We have to put a little bit more grit and substance behind it with goalkeeper curriculums, and some consistency in our training. And, that takes money, that takes manpower. And we need to be able to, focus a little bit more if we want to kind of get back to where we were, back 15 years ago.
But I think, Todd, just to step in right here and to bring this up with Kevin right here, because he's currently in the game right here. I think, you're bringing up Tim Dittmer and, defending the goal, defending the area, defending the space, all those sorts of things, and that type of terminology that they're using. I mean, it's no small wonder that England is producing high-level goalkeepers in both the men and women's game with the work they're doing over there. And I think that attitude that Itzik just had right there. I believe they are.
I mean,
I believe they are.
Look at the majority of goalkeepers starting in the EPL. Are they all English? They're not. De Gea's not English.
We just
like,
opened
wait a
Pandora's
minute.
box here.
Wait a minute. They may be playing in the English league, but that doesn't mean they're English.
Kevin, you want to step in?
Making a comment.
Kevin, you want to step in?
No, I think that there's certainly, top English goalkeepers, no doubt. I think one of the things that we have to remember is just the infrastructure of play within the United States. And, for a long time, we didn't necessarily have a reserve league. The reserve league that we had was a reserve league in which you would play in front of maybe your girlfriend and your parents on Sunday mornings. And it didn't necessarily do anything that would emulate what it was like to play on the top level match. And while it's experience, it's not relevant experience. And I think for a long time, there were guys like myself, guys like Nick Raimondo and Joe Cannon and John Bush that really just kind of monopolized experiences at the top level of soccer in the United States. And so then you have a group of reserve goalkeepers that don't necessarily get their first opportunity until they're 28, 29 years old in pressure situations. And so it's a lot easier for, somebody like Peter Vermees at Kansas City to go and find Jimmy Nielsen, who is, found games in Scandinavia, et cetera, is maybe a lot further along, than somebody that might have been within the roster for the entire time that I was there for 3 years, And so it was a struggle. I don't think we've totally figured out, how to do it even today. I think they're still working through their MLS Next Pro. I think you're still looking at some top level goalkeepers within the USL Championship. But in actuality, it's really tough to not have the infrastructure to be able to produce, battle hardened goalkeepers here in the United States. Whereas if you're playing in the championship, you have the Premiership, you have League One. There's a number of different opportunities that don't necessarily exist within the States at the current time, or maybe they do now, but they haven't necessarily proved their value over a number of years. And I think that that's one of the things within the infrastructure of the English FA that you would see. You have the opportunity to make a living as a professional and get experiences. You can go on loan. There's a lot more dynamics that are available that don't necessarily, we don't have those here yet.
I agree, and we've talked about this before, Mike. Where on the women's side, where we look at like a Heritage or somebody that has gone overseas, that has said, I'm not going to sit third on the totem pole for an NWSL team. I'm going to go play. I'm going to go play wherever, but I'm going to go get, like you said, Kevin, game hardened. I'm going to get my time in. I'm going to get, like, for me, when I went to Japan, I got abused, but I got games in and games in and games in because I sat behind Bri for so long, but I was ready because I was playing. And I think that, the ability to do that as a goalkeeper and then be able to come back and start and walk into an Angel City or something like that and be one of the top goalkeepers in the league. The only reason she could do that, sitting third in the NWSL with no other place to play. And it's the same thing on the women's side. Where you go, there's the W League or something, no offense on the W League, but same thing. You're playing in front of your wives or your boyfriends or your husbands on the weekends. So being able to have the access to that is key for a goalkeeper, because we don't sub goalkeepers. You don't get played.
And I think you all are bringing up really valid points right there. And Todd, I want to talk to you about this because, kind of getting back to the meat and potatoes, shout out to John Bush right there on that term right there for the topic of indirect goal prevention. Well, if you're not seeing the pictures, like, how the heck are you really going to know what the correct starting position is with this player, that player, or whatever, if it's all conceptual because you're only on a training field?
Well, it's got to go hand in hand at the end of the day. You've got to have the training aspect on the training field and then to be able to apply it when you're on the game field. And if you're only ever getting half that picture, so to speak, it's very difficult to really have any consistency at all. And that's one of the big things where, we always say you got to be able to play. And if you're finding yourself as a third choice, you're probably better off somewhere else, where at least you might even be getting a game every month or something like that, or get loaned out. But it all starts on the training field. I love the topic that Kevin's brought in here, because I look at this topic is what really truly separates goalkeepers from shot stoppers. Because for me, they're two totally different beasts. There's a lot of people that can stop shots, but there's not a lot of goalkeepers. And there's goalkeepers, I won't mention any names, in the Premier League that I would call a shot stopper as opposed to a goalkeeper. And as well at MLS and all the different levels, and do you have to have an element of being a shot stopper? Absolutely. But being in the right place at the right time, being in a set position, being at the right angle, that's to me what really separates it. And that starts on the training ground, with somebody like Kevin, kind of behind the goal, talking to him, asking questions, could you have maybe been a little bit higher? Did you need to be a little bit lower? Were you truly set? What did you see? And those types of questions, I think, really helps develop that goalkeeper on the field live, as well as, afterwards, breaking down video, watching match play, and then, okay, now can they go apply it when they actually got to perform on the Saturday?
Todd, I love what you just said about did you see, because Kevin, I think, and you were obviously involved as a director in the youth academy at LA Galaxy. A lot of times you'll ask, what did you see? They don't know what to say, because they haven't really been scanning the field. They haven't really been engaged and present. And how can we start implementing this into our session design so that they start learning what to see and when to see it?
I think, for me, a lot of it, and Todd kind of alluded to it, it's important to understand the capabilities of all the players on the field. It's not a ball and an angle and a set size of a goal. You're talking about, and you can certainly maybe overestimate the capabilities of the opponent, maybe underestimate the capabilities of your teammates. So then you can find this happy working medium, right? But I think what can threaten the space behind is obviously the pace of the pass, the speed of the opponent. How fast are you? Like, where do all these intricacies kind of fit within this scenario and how it's going to break down? And the more that you're able to see that in training, then I think the more success that you're going to find. But if you're only kind of operating in obstacle courses off to the side, I don't really ever think that you get the ability to kind of gauge how these things fit within the game. And there's certainly a lot of people that are able to do an effective job of it, but is it ideal? No. And so I think you really need the head coach and to really kind of buy into the fact that we need to really kind of paint these scenarios. We need our keepers involved in the training session, and all of these things really need to kind of mesh well together so that we can create scenarios in which goalkeepers can have experiences, and then the next time they see that same experience, they're able to come up with a solution more quickly. They're able to concisely and efficiently relay information so that the defenders can assist them with it, and then it becomes small group goal defense rather than just the goalkeeper and a ball.
I love what you just said right there. And, Saskia, this is something that I think is really, really important, especially, and obviously you were involved in the collegiate game for a while, and why you were so adamant that you needed actual field players to get involved within your session designs, whether it's a player there's surplus players left over, whether there's a player who's just serving because they're not fit enough to play in the match, whatever it is, because it's very difficult for the goalkeepers to simulate the actual scenario of the pace, the strength, the agility, all of that.
No, it was very important because like Kevin said, you can be doing obstacle courses on the side. Like, how does that translate? And so as much as I could use field players and the team field players, not, hey kid, what are you doing over there? Come here, like serious field players, that whether they were rehabbing, whatever they were doing, whether utility players or stuff, to simulate the game speed, game pace, game scenarios within my training session was paramount. Like, it had to happen because, you can't otherwise, and as much as we can incorporate our technical sessions into and then translate it in training into real game scenarios with the team at game speed, at game pace, seeing different situations, then you can develop a goalkeeper that might be number 2, and have them ready to possibly play.
Yeah. Todd, anything you want to add to that in regards to because this is a conversation, this is a debate that I have with people all the time, and I know club directors, youth club directors especially, say this to me all the time. They say, well, I can't spare players. I can't spare players. I can't spare players.
Well, and I agree with both. I mean, absolutely 100%. You have to be able to recreate that. But even as much as we try to recreate it, it's never the same as a full-fledged real game.
Never.
So if you can just imagine that, if you're not even have the ability to recreate at some level in training, man, how are you ever going to be able to expect them to be able to do it on a Saturday or a Sunday, because they've never even seen it at maybe 3/4 pace? How can we have them that at 100 miles an hour?
That's right.
But it's huge. It takes a lot of planning. It truly does, and not just you sitting down figuring out your sessions, but having communication with the manager, the assistants. What are they going to be doing? And that's why I work backwards. I figure out what they want to do, and then how am I going to implement into that, and how am I going to build into that? Is the way I always try to do it. And I'm sure we all have different ways of skinning the cat, so to speak. No reference to El Gato, but.
Yeah, and to be frank,
you had to go there. You had to go there, Tom.
And to be frank, I think I'm really lucky in the fact that I have a couple hours before training every day. We stay a couple hours after training each day, so it makes it a lot easier, and it could theoretically, maybe be unrealistic at the youth level from some perspective, unless you're in maybe a top academy like where you have full-time people. But I do think that it's unique, the working environment that I am in terms of the access to contribute to the team planning and team training that Greg gives me. So I understand kind of it from both perspective. And Saskia obviously mentioned, whether the players off to the side, whatever it is, to keep that tempo and the quality relevant, right? And I would agree with her on that perspective as well.
One thing that was really fascinating to me, and this is something that I saw Daniel Ball at Angel City do, and Saskia, I believe you were on the call at the same time we were watching the session design, is he actually was using the scrimmage that was going on to work with the goalkeeper that was actually not in the match. And it was absolutely amazing what he was doing. It was like basically they were kind of almost shadow play of what the scenario was that was going on, as if they were dealing with it while they were actually active in their session. It was really brilliant. And I'm probably not giving it justice the way I'm bringing it up there. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It does make no sense.
I was sitting here, I was like, was I on that call? I'm not really sure what you're explaining right now.
Basically, Kevin and Todd.
I know, it's okay.
Okay.
I get it, but there are multiple. There are many ways that goalkeeper coaches. Let's nip this in the bud. That we try to get people at game speed, get them to try to simulate a game scenario. I agree with you, Todd. At the end of the day, it's never gonna be that. Whether it's 1/3 of it, whether it's a quarter, whether it's a half of it, it's never going to be. I can't imagine the amount of times I've yelled even at doing like functional training with shooting and being like, guys, game pace, you're not going to get 4 touches in the box, and so like those kind of things, like even having to tell forwards that, sunshine, you can't bring it down 3 times, juggle it and chip it over my keeper, So as much as you can get it as close to game scenario as possible is absolutely paramount. But at the end of the day, we all know that a goalkeeper needs to play in a game, and that's it. That they need that. They need the reps. They need to see the scenarios. They need to see people in the peripheral running to near post, far post, slot, everything. Wall of shots being taken, wall of 3 balls happening, pushing your team up. You can't recreate that.
Yeah. Well, by the way,
I would argue that that's probably one of the reasons when we go back to what we talked about, 20, 30 minutes ago, we had that lull in American goalkeeping.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the reasons why we had that lull, because back, 10, 15 years ago, we didn't even have the remotely opportunity for those number 2 and number 3 goalkeepers to play anywhere. Right. As, Kevin talked about. It's not ideal now here in the league or any of the leagues, but it's a lot better. It's a lot better with this new, merger with USL or whatever they're calling it now. It seems to change, yearly, but it's a lot better. That reserve league, so to speak, is a lot better. Or there's opportunities to go on loan to USL because an MLS club have affiliations. If they don't have their own, they have an affiliation that they can go and send them off to at least get some of that game and help develop. So it is better. But I think that's one of the big reasons we probably at least aided in the fact that we had a little bit of a lull in American goalkeeping.
I want to bring this up right here because this is a great point by Itzik Rappaport, who's like, I don't want to hijack the entire call here, but shout out to Itzik for bringing this stuff up. And Kevin, you obviously, you're working in the game right now. He says it's never going to be real game experience, but it does work on neurological pathways in the brain. So when you do face it in reality, your brain has seen it before. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think one of the in preparation, one of the things I was going through was, what are the ways that we're working on this in training? I think was one of the questions that you kind of brought up. And so I don't necessarily think that, the greatest pianists in the world are always still doing, kind of their rhythm play, right? But then, and I think you need that technically. I think you need to kind of feel the flow of it. I think you do need to activate those pathways that he mentioned. But you also have to operate kind of even beyond that, right? So even game speed isn't necessarily ideal. Sometimes you want to overload it. Sometimes you want to, you see Phil will bring out the synaptics and he'll work on his vision training. And then you'll set up scenarios within your session where you're, having people check their shoulder and give you real-time feedback in terms of how many people are in the box and how that is going to affect what their positioning looks like. There's just so many times where you watch a winger kind of run themselves out of a play towards the corner flag, and the goalkeeper's still like kind of alongside their line. And then there's one really deep far post run, and it looks like they're dealing with something that's in a training environment where somebody has given this ambiguous information. Whereas if I go stand on my 8-yard line, this guy is probably going to hit it to me, pretty comfortably. So you're always trying to figure out, what can you be accountable for? And for me, I'm a big Jocko Willink fan, and he has a book out called Extreme Ownership. And I just feel like anything that's in your world, like, you have an impact on. And so sometimes that's managing up the chain. Sometimes it's, managing the guys in front of you, whatever the case might be. You have some say in keeping this ball out of your goal. And so I think sometimes we're really pessimistic and we say, well, I couldn't have done much there. And I start talking about, well, if you get this defender back into a better space, maybe a little bit earlier, and you're giving them good, effective communication, that you could have maybe affected it a little bit differently, and it's never a blame game to me. It's really just about, how can we constantly evolve ourselves so that, we can be better, and so I think that there has to be a lot of trust within those conversations, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're not going to always get real game time or real game speed environment. Sometimes you want to build confidence, and sometimes that confidence comes through, repetition. And that's one of the things I'm always concerned about. Like, I love repetition. I love the confidence that comes along with repetition, but I also don't want to dedicate 75% of my training session to it. And, you talk about youth and like how important is technique to youth players. And it's crucial. I mean, obviously you need to create a repeatable set of techniques that are both safe and effective so that you get the experiences that you want. You're not conceding the goals, but you have to, over time, begin to figure out how you're going to integrate real scenarios into or integrate these techniques into real scenarios so that they make sense and they have value.
So speaking of that, speaking of real scenarios, I want to throw up some of these real scenarios right over here. And I want to start with literally a crazy, insane match that I don't have to tell Kevin about because he was there on Friday, how crazy this game was. And I want to start with a very simple play to the layman. And Kevin, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about right here. We'll watch it through, but basically it's like less than a minute, I think, into the game, right? Where like Roldan plays an in-swinging ball from the outside wing of my midfield inside. Bondi kind of recognizes, drops back, recovers right there. I want everyone to kind of see this, and I would love Kevin's breakdown here because, again, to the layman, it looks like nothing's going on here, but there's a lot of indirect goal prevention taking place here. So let's watch it one more time through. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, no, I think obviously there's a number of different factors here. I mean, I think we're kind of making sure that we're organizing what our defense looks like, putting people in good places. And to be honest, I think probably the biggest, most effective play within this is Sega Koulibaly's ability to kind of bump the forward. But, you take a look and you can see Bondi's probably 6 to 7 yards off of his line, looking to kind of sweep up space in behind the defense and really help those guys out for some of this lofted service. As it comes in, it's, not overhead height. He realizes his defense is going to have to deal with it. And it's a misclearance from Nick Depew. You can see Bondi, all of a sudden his momentum begins to shift. He looks to see how he's going to be able to help out the team. And Sega is able to get a big push on Jordan Morris, who's an absolute monster. And so by really kind of stepping into that space, it creates a pocket which Bondi can work. And Bondi's obviously aggressive and comes up and sweeps it up. But, right from the get-go, the number of people who are engaged on the play is pretty miraculous. And it ends up being a pretty easy pickup for Bondi. But if he would have settled deeply early, he wouldn't have really even had access to the save once it comes off the foot.
I love what you were saying right there, Kevin. And there's so much going on here. Susky, I heard you kind of go like, oh, like right there when you brought up Koulibaly and that bump that he gives to Jordan Morris. You want to kind of elaborate why you got so excited there?
Well, you want your defenders have to do that. They have to give you some space to be able to come and pick up the ball. They have to shield it. And we've seen time and time again when they don't, when you see at certain levels when the defender's like, oh, the keeper's coming. And now it's, now it's a one-on-one in a quick tight situation. That bump, that shielding and everything, that's what you're supposed to do as a defender. What I'm liking is that I love that the line that's held here. Like that service coming from as far out as it is, a lot of times you'll see, whether it's in the women's game or some, men's games, like that line drops so deep and the space between the goalkeeper and your back line is so congested that creates chaos. And like, I'm always like, get out of my way. Like, get out of my area. Give me the space. Let me have this. You guys hold your line. If this gets, mishandled, there's time to make up for the mistake. But if everybody's just dropping back, and now that forces you as a goalkeeper to drop back into the goal, now it's chaos. So I like that the line's held high. I like that he gives himself space to make up for the mistake. And I love Kalabali knocking him off on his ass, personally.
And I think the important thing is for youth goalkeeper coaches and especially youth goalkeepers is obviously the information that I'm sure he was giving to delay, to have them hold their line, all that information was there, but it's the starting position for him as well. And I think a lot of goalkeepers, and this is what I was, talking about before, shot stoppers versus goalkeeper. This is a goalkeeping starting position.
Agreed.
The shot stopper is probably 3 or 4 yards back closer to his line. And probably then when that ball does sneak through, he's unable to win that ball.
And he's waiting for the shot.
Yeah, which is what happens a lot at the youth level.
And you're also forcing the server. I agree with you 1,000%, because now when the server looks up to serve that ball, there is no space in there. They're not looking to serve it like 5 yards in from the top of the D. They're like, well, the keeper's there. Yep. Like, I can't. Now I have to drop it in outside the D and everything. So I totally agree with you.
Well, and especially, and I think you said this was the first, I didn't see the game. So was this the first minute of the game?
I love that Kevin's just smiling.
I'm
not as good at jumping in as you guys are.
Well, I always ask kids one question, and it's a trick question. Well, what's the most important cross you're ever going to face? And you'll get, oh, it's a corner. Well, it might be. Oh, it's a deep end line cross. It might be. Yeah, it's a cutback. It might be. It's the first one. The first one you face in a game is the most important one, because if he's standing on his line, when that cross comes in, what's that person serving the ball going to do the next time they get the ball? They're playing it behind that space. If you're coming out big and strong and you're winning the ball, again, have you had an effect on the game? Yeah, because now that person that's on the ball on the flank, the next time is going, oh boy, I got to keep it away from the goalkeeper today. Mm-hmm. So it's that first cross. And if this is the first minute of the game, I think he made a great statement on the game that he's going to be there and he's going to suck up anything that comes through there by his starting position and how he's organized his back four. I think this is great.
Todd, I love what you just said right there. I wasn't even thinking about that, but it kind of goes back to what Itzik was talking about mindset, in his webinar yesterday. Is mindset is that, Kevin, like, if your mindset is ready and engaged, ready to go that first minute, you make an impression right there, you've indirectly affected the game, because they're going to change their game plan. Maybe not at this level, but definitely at the youth level, based on what they're seeing, because they may have not seen you play before. So.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was going to say, I think that there's a number of different ways that you can really, establish your perception within a game. And it can be your positioning, early positioning here from Bondi is probably, like we said, probably 7 to 8 yards out. But it's also, you can see his footwork. He's also able to separate himself and get back to that arc that he really likes to make saves in, probably 3 to 4 yards from his goal when he's trying to figure out if Morris is going to get a touch to it. But he ebbs and he flows with it. He's able to make adjustments within it. There's a lot of work that goes into this. I'm forcing the guys every time that we're doing shooting exercises. Are you addressing every phase of the shooting exercise? Because there's so many goalkeepers that will just sit underneath their crossbar and just wait to make the final save. And from a perspective of focus, from a perspective of cardiovascular training, you have to be engaged throughout these saves, because this is moves where he's contemplating whether he's going to be taking this ball 14 to 16 yards out as a cross, whether it's going to come off of Morris and he's going to be 2 to 3 yards from his line, or whether it's going to skip free and he's going to pick it up 8 to 9 yards from his goal. So he has to be identifying all the different possibilities that happen within this this one little scenario right here. And we talk about, all you're really doing is trying to identify, prioritize, and execute, right? And that happens thousands of times every game. And if you're not able to kind of focus for more than 2 minutes at a time, it's a really difficult thing to be a top level goalkeeper. And we're really fortunate to have the goalkeepers that we have working with us right now.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, we can even go down to footwork.
Yeah.
We can break it down, like backing up, his body weight's still forward. So the minute that this gets mishandled, he's not on his heels, he's not flat-footed. His first step is forward, even though he was backing up, and he can attack the ball and be on point. I mean, we can get that down and deep into it if you want.
I that's why I love this clip, and I don't want to monopolize this clip because I got other ones that I wanted to show here, and I know Kevin sent some stuff too, but like literally, so many young goalkeepers would be running out at this ball, and just to show at the highest levels the patience to then drop, create a little bit of depth so you have time to come forward and cover that space. That's just, in my opinion, that's high GK IQ.
Yeah.
I would say that I think one of the reasons that Jonathan gets more of these right than not is he's constantly exploring these spaces in training, right? And so I think some of the clips that I showed you, I think even today, I think there's probably 2 that he gets right, but I think there's one that he gets really like far off. But they have to believe that they can have these experiences in training, and they can see what they're capable of coming up with without fear of repercussion, right? I think that they're obviously at my level, like you want to make sure that there's some healthy fear. But I also think that some of this stuff in behind the line is not cut and dry, and until you're gauging what the field looks like and what the pace of the opponent and yourself and all those things, how they interact with one another, I'd much rather have somebody that's failing occasionally than somebody that's sitting on their line rooted to it.
Absolutely. And this, like we said, this could have gone like 5 other ways. Like, he doesn't get the block on the player, like stuff like that. This could have been a totally different type of save. So, okay, you can move on, Mike.
I'm gonna move on, and Kevin, it's hilarious because
it's like a 5-hour podcast.
I know there's so much meat in the first 5 minutes of the Seattle match to go over. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's just from an educational standpoint, there was so much that happened in the first few minutes right here. So I want to move on. This is the 3rd minute of the match. I think it's a long ball by Gomez from outside the circle. And I think Morris is double teamed right here. And now Bondi moves laterally to kind of cover that space basically right there, because he recognizes kind of that like he needs to step in and recover the ball. So that there's not a moment for Morris to come onto the ball. I mean, again, this looks really simple to kind of the untrained eye. If you want to walk us through.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's got. I mean, we're talking about 44 yards laterally that you're talking about within the goal area. So you're positioning yourself not just in line with the center of the goal and the ball, but with prospective, runners and people that might be able to get on the other side of it. Jordan Morris is a player that, will run from between the center back and the outside back into that assist zone space all the time. And so you have to be really engaged. You can see that, Bondi has done a good job in terms of effectively judging that Nick DePuy is going to be able to shield it from some perspective. So he's not necessarily dealing with a looped shot over his head. So he is in a little bit more of an advanced position. But if Nick solely bumps him off, then Bondi's probably going to have to deal with this 15 to 16 yards outside the box. It eventually ends up, I think, hitting off Nick's thigh or off his foot or something, and kind of scuttles itself towards the end line, and Bondi is able to kind of scurry over there and pick it up. But it's just another example of him supporting his defense, and whatever he can do to take the burden off of these guys. They're on islands. They're in big spaces against really top level players. And I'm a big believer that if he's able to take some of that pressure off of the guys, then that's going to do nothing but kind of reinforce the relationship that they have. He's going to be able to expect them to track something down that maybe they wouldn't in other circumstances, because they see his willingness to kind of bail them out of some awkward spots themselves.
I love what you were just saying in regards to the ownership, Todd. I know that's something that you've talked about consistently over and over again, is that, you know, if you're a defender and you see your goalkeeper come over to make sure that ball doesn't cross the line right there, and they're chasing and they're covering it up, and now you have possession, you know that you know, that man or woman has your back.
Well, and you can see that in them, because they've got faith and trust that the person behind them is there and is going to be covering that space that's in behind them, and you can see that. And it allows them to just do their job and maybe try to get a bump in and knock Jordan Morris off a little bit, because they know, yep, their goalkeeper's behind there and they're going to clean it up because of their positioning. And again, that confidence and that comfort level comes from the training ground. You know, being put in these scenarios over and over again, that they've got the comfort level in him. So it's not just him getting the comfort level with his position and everything. It's them getting the reverse.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to what Todd said. Also, like, if you're a shot stopper, you're not in that position. And what's that mean? That's a corner kick. You're not getting there, right? So the little things we see that change the game, right? So his positioning is great. If there's a flick ball, if it's towards him, he can come and pick it up. He can take care of it. It's not going over his head. We know that for the pressure on the ball and the type of service. Look how high he is. If you're a shot stopper and you're inside your 6, you're not getting to this. You're not cleaning it up. Now it's a corner kick and a possible goal.
Yeah.
And I just corner kicks at this level are huge.
Are huge.
I mean, it's, you know, I talk to kids all the time, you know, when we talk about footwork and handling, and you've heard me say this a million times, I think catching and holding the ball is becoming a lost art. And it drives me nuts.
Oh my
you know,
God.
and I tell kids, you know, at the pro game, you know, when I was in MLS, on that ball that you could have held, and you parried it wide. Now you've got Carlos Vela, all right, or Mega Rapinoe, or somebody that's a dangerous player in a dangerous position. And now your 6'5" center backs are also coming into your box. Yeah. It's a danger on a ball that you could have held. I'm not talking about the ball that you're at full stretch and you're pushing it wide. Yeah, those are the ones we want to put out. I'm talking about the ones you should have held. And this is the same sort of scenario, like you just said.
I get made fun of by some of our coaches out here in Southern California, because they always, like, they'll come to, like, when I was at UCLA, they'll come to a game and, like, Warren would have made a save or, like, parried it, and they'll be like, hold the ball, because I'm like, hold the ball. I'm like, catch the ball. Like, because don't give up rebounds that don't have to happen. And I agree with you, Todd. It's not the outstretched. It's not the tip over the bar. It's not that. It's kids today do that automatic parry thing or automatic block because of what they've seen at a higher level, and whether it's De Gea or whoever it is, like Schmeichel or somebody just blocking the ball. And I'm like, dude, the ball's not coming at you at 90 miles an hour, just volley it to you. So like catch the ball. And it's a lost art that needs to come back. Period.
Absolutely. So I want to play one more clip right here. Kevin, I was just trying to download your stuff and it's still downloading. So apologize. I just got the email.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It was really just a collection of crosses where he kind of helped bail out his teammates, and then a collection of balls that he's dealing with at the top of the 18 and even beyond. So you can feel free to maybe attach it to the later, or if it comes in time, then we'll
I want to talk more
it.
about the crossing comment. Why is crossing such an issue? And I would love to get into that.
Okay, well, so here's a crossing clip. I think
or handling crossing, positioning on crossing, everything. I mean, I know my opinion, but
I know my opinion, and I've voiced it at many times. In my opinion, young kids struggle with their cross for one reason. When do they see them? They see them in full games, 100 miles an hour, under full pressure. They never see uncontested, unchallenged, where they don't have to worry about all the layers of pressure are off, and they just worry about their range. And then you add a layer of pressure, and then they get comfortable. And I make the analogy of I've got 2 kids, so when your son or daughter turns 16, you would never take the keys to the car and say, you know what, we're going to the interstate. First time they're behind the wheel. You would never do that.
No.
You know, but when we ask young goalkeepers to deal with a cross, the only time they're really seeing them is in a full game situation.
Yeah.
And that's like literally giving them keys to the car and going on the freeway. You know, we've got to put them on the parking lot with no pressure, and then eventually put them on the side road, get them on the main street, then progress them. And I think that's one of the big reasons why we struggle with cross at the youth game, is because we never take the time. And
I think it's also this, and I've gotten into it with some youth coaches before. They don't train it. Their kids can't serve a ball. They're more worried about effectiveness in their training session than they are about that. And so it's like, I've had coaches come up to me and be like, your goalkeeper can't hit, like a 50-yard goal kick. Your goalkeeper can't. I'm like, well, your kids can't hit a cross. So why don't you take all the whole team and teach them how to serve a ball before you come at me and tell me my goalkeeper can't serve a ball, your team can't serve a ball. I got in a big fight about that one. But the truth is, it's when do you ever see that in the youth game that they're in a training session that they serve a slotted ball, a ball on the ground, they come towards the goal. Nobody's serving that. I used to finish every single practice, pro, in college, at Rutgers, everything with crosses. Every practice. It'd be like, all right, guys, the team's like stretching down. Goalkeepers would go in. We do crosses. Crosses under pressure. Crosses just to get our range down. Everything. Crosses, crosses, crosses.
Yeah, I would say that I'm not even sure within the realm of goalkeepers and goalkeeper coaches that we have full clarity on, what's the expectation, because there's a certain percentage of very high level goalkeeping coaches that don't want to see goalkeepers come. I mean, if you watch the Premiership, there's goalkeepers on corner kicks that are rooted to the line and they're allowing the defense to deal with everything. And then from my perspective, I'm like, okay, well, if you have these kind of guys integrated into a zone, then this would be the area that you would be responsible for. And so I even think, I'm not sure that everybody is coming for crosses anymore. And I think it's purposeful from some perspective. I think that there's some people believe that, we're more likely to concede if you come and you're unable to claim it. I'd much rather just have you stay on the line and try to deal with redirected shots on frame. And so until we can get clarity on that, or I know what my clarity is.
But it's a catch-22, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's something that has to be kind of worked out kind of internally about what are your expectations, because internally our expectation is that you're coming for some stuff. Our expectation is not that you're sitting there.
But like I said, it's a catch-22. Like Kevin Todd, like if you're not training your keeper to own their area, at least like a certain part of the six, and come and be able to come up and be strong and go for crosses, and you're saying stay on the line, and then you're like just shot block, and everybody's like piled on top of you, and then you get the quick flick and it's a goal. Well, and then we stand back and say, couldn't you have just stepped 2 yards off your line and caught that? Like, if you're not going to train it, then yes, stick your goalkeeper on the line and let them shot stop. But train it and imagine the area that they could cover.
Well, let's just take it real quick, Todd. Let's just take in this picture right here in regards to this deep out swinging service right here that Bondi comes outside his six, covering that gap. How many young goalkeepers would literally just like right here when that service comes in? Yeah. How many young goalkeepers just go back, or they go towards the near post, or hoping that dude's going to do something about it, as opposed to recognize, well, I can just claim this space. There's enough air underneath this ball for me to come and just claim this space. And now there's no danger whatsoever.
Well, and you've seen me with my little pie graph before of when I break down touches, right? All my years in MLS, I compiled them all together. And I know this is opening up a whole new discussion, but the percentage of interventions from the goalkeeper is higher in dealing with a cross than it is diving saves. And yet in training, how many youth goalkeeper coaches just concentrate on diving? And yet that's a less percentage of touches or interventions, what do you want to call them, than is that goalkeeper dealing with a cross. And yet we ignore it and we don't train it. So that, for me, is a pretty powerful statistic. And I'm not a big stat person for our game. We're not baseball. But that's a pretty powerful one that I think if for any young goalkeeper coach that's out there, if when we talk about let's create real environments in our training, that's real. You've got to train what the game is giving you. If the game is giving you 20% of your interventions or crosses, 20% of your training should be dealing with the cross. If 10% is dealing with the diving save, then 10% should be dealing with diving saves, not the reverse, which most of the time, 90% of youth goalkeeping revolves around diving. So I know that's a whole new can of worms.
And I agree with you on that. When 90% of the game you're doing distribution, and how much is focused on that. Oh, you're supposed to be able to side volley kick, do that, and everything like that. We're not going to train it. You're just supposed to be able to do it. That's 90% of what a goalkeeper.
Or you're just doing, or you're just doing it in isolation, Saskia. Like there's a lot of session designs out there, Kevin, and I'm sure you can attest to this of young goalkeeper coaches out there who I see their session design, and it's like, okay, you're just teaching them how to pass in isolation. There's no pressure coming right here. You're not teaching them how to escape. You're not teaching them how to find the right targets. You're not teaching them how to move off the ball in possession, all those sorts of things. And I think, that comes back into your conversation about sweeping.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the things that, within the academy that we probably would want to integrate is if you're playing 4v2 over a 12x12 space, like you'll see more like about how you're going to find your six, like what those bounces look like, what the importance of your first touch, et cetera, the pace of the pass, then you're going to see kind of in a lot of scenarios. I agree about that side of it. I'm kind of looking at some of the video that you've kind of thrown up here. It's interesting because you're showing the game from Colorado, from what I can see, and I mean, I can't imagine how many games that Jonathan Bond has played at a mile high in altitude, but I can't imagine it's very many. So, for him to have a real comfortability sitting 8 yards from goal when this guy gets his head up and swings it to the back post, when he's talking about intercepting a ball that, is to a speedy striker, 10 to 15 yards outside of his box. It's really amazing how quickly these things come together for him. It's kind of no nonsense from some perspective, but the number of opportunities that he's kind of come out and dealt with situations like this per this year, especially, really makes it so that he has 2 or 3 mistakes that I'm not going to say anything to him, because he's eliminated so many situations where we're really in a pickle. And he steps out and he really does a great job of kind of managing that space. And, we talk a lot about starting positions, about being able to split that space in behind the defense with recovering defenders and what that looks like. And he's involved in it all the time, and, certainly it is very demanding to be able to make decisions like that up in Denver.
I want to bring this up right here, and I know, guys, we've been going for a while here, so I apologize, but there's a lot of really good stuff going on right here, because this is really a fascinating thing, because I wanted to bring this up because it's the one-time clearance right here, and we've seen 2 examples in the men's game in the last few days.
Are we talking about Mendy?
We're talking about Mendy, and then we're talking about we're talking about the Rangers game, the PSV Rangers game yesterday, where the exact same thing happened. And the goalkeeper, I forgot who it was, after their prep touch tried to escape rather than just play it into a good area. Kevin or Todd, if either one of you wants to step in here, and why it's so important for young goalkeepers to see that this is okay. There's nothing wrong with this. You don't have to escape and show your foot skills in every moment.
Well, if I can go back to that clip real quick before we venture into that, and I'll let Kevin take that one. But I think that this is another thing when we talk about our league, which I think if you haven't played in this league or been a part of this league, you kind of take for granted. But this is in Colorado. Mm-hmm. That ball played in there is different than it was if it was in LA. And that's the difficulty on a week to basis, depending on where you are. His decision making here in Colorado or his starting position is probably different than it is in LA, just because the way that ball is going to move at mile high.
And what about this weekend in New England, right? That ball checks up on turf.
On turf.
So there's a number of different factors you're considering. Obviously, it goes back to the original service. Like if that's Carlos Gil this weekend, it's a totally different ball than a lot of players within the league. He's probably one of the best playmakers within the league. So you have to take kind of all of those different things, prioritize, what's most pressing at that point. But I guess the thing for me is Jonathan is a player that enjoys playing out of the back. He's somebody that probably played as a field player until maybe a little bit further along than most people do. It loves trying to figure out ways to kind of manipulate the opponent, try to figure out ways that we can play out of the back. And one of our biggest issues is that we're looking to see where the pressure is coming from, so then he can kind of work off of that. But within that, if the ball's 2 to 3 yards, you don't really have that 70-yard clearance anymore, right? And so we talk a lot about safety, but a comfortability and also building out. And we're really, I think, really fortunate to have somebody that is able to buy themselves time on the ball, but also I think makes really clear decisions. And you saw the decisions within not coming on the ball that was kind of awkward at the top of the box, and there's a whole litany of examples of that. But even here, just full clarity that I'm not really going to monkey around with this thing. I'm gonna not go ahead and knock it out of bounds, and live to fight another day. And there still is that. I don't think the game has evolved beyond the point where we can't respect the risk reward factor within the game. It still exists.
Yeah, I mean, I bring up Mendy for what are you doing? Just dump it out for a corner. As much as I hate corner kicks, what are you doing? Why are you cutting a ball back after a third touch and trying? What are you doing? You're on the end. Just dump the ball out for a corner. Live to fight another day. It's that mental aspect, that concept, that understanding what's going on, the situations, and being able to implement the right decision at the right time.
Now, I will say this, play devil's advocate right here.
What?
And Todd, I'm going to say
Mendy?
no, not with Mendy, not with Mendy, because I'm going to say there's a very big difference between first team football in a situation, in a competitive match like that, and a 9-10-year-old that you want them to explore and learn from their mistakes and know when they have time on the ball and when they don't have time on the ball. Right, Todd?
There is, but I think even with that young goalkeeper, I want them to explore, but I'm still going to tell them the same thing I'm going to tell a pro. You get paid to keep the ball at the back of the net. They get paid to deal with the ball at their feet.
Okay.
You do the simple things to give them the ball. You don't need to do a step over or a Cruyff turn in the back or thread a needle, because that's the risk reward that Kevin's talking about.
Thank you. Exactly.
I would rather have the ball 80 yards from our goal than me trying to thread a needle 20 yards from goal and it doesn't come off. Because now I'm essentially creating more work for myself.
Yeah, and there's a time and place to test the limits here. First of all, no goalkeeper should be doing a Cruyff move or anything, and a cutback.
2 goalkeepers in 4 days. Look,
and how many are in the back of the net?
Both.
So that's my point. When in doubt, put it in the stands. When in doubt, kick it out. And live to fight another day. I agree with Kevin 100%. We're also teaching the mental aspect of this game. You're proactive, you're not reactive. We're teaching young kids to make the right decisions.
Yeah.
Not be so literal.
No, you're right. You're bringing up great points right there. You really.
Mike, did you do a Cruyff in your game this weekend?
No, I did not. Actually, I played great last Thursday. I'm gonna jinx it now. So we had. Kevin and Todd last week on the podcast, I talked about the shocker I had the week before in my men's league, in our opening match for my men's league, and so Cody Lorendi was on, and we were joking around about talking about scouting and identifying players. Would not have identified me, but I played very well last Thursday. I mean, we lost. We still people need to score. That's all I'm saying. People need to score, and so I did not try to do a Cruyff turn. I understood my limitations and I cleared the ball into the stands.
There you go.
when necessary. But I think, just kind of shutting the door on this entire topic here with this sweeping aspect right there, Kevin, is a lot of young goalkeepers. Ederson and they think, oh, they see the highlights. They think that's what he's doing the whole game. No, actually do a match analysis and actually watch Ederson playing with Man City. Most of it is simple movements off the ball and simple passing. It's every once in a while that you'll see those extreme plays, which unfortunately social media loves to gravitate to, or the highlights gravitate to, because ESPN's not showing, or NBC showing highlights of, the possession build pass, square ball across 5 yards, So a lot of young goalkeepers need to know that when we're talking about them playing with their feet in possession, it's about making the job easy for the players in front of them.
I think that, one of the things with Ederson is he's playing at Man City, and they have probably one of the best tacticians that ever has coached the game, setting everybody up in positions for success. Right. And, they know pretty early on, like, what the build out shape looks like. And more often than not, people have, genuine options with, cover underneath it. And so there's a lot more, I think, confidence playing out of the back when you're in a system that has those types of options. And so it's really important that, just like we talked about, starting to evolve yourself technically at a young age is starting to really kind of understand, what are the concepts of your build out, and what are the expectations, and what are legitimate options. And then, as a counterpoint to, not taking any risks, there have been a ton of times where I've knocked the ball long, and then somebody comes and wins it. We're late stepping out, and then all of a sudden it's in the back of the net another way. So there is genuine value in possession. I think the risk taking, you have to be really dialed in with what you can accomplish, and really just understanding your game. And so we talk about how you use your practice time, et cetera, so that you can be confident within all of this. But yeah, I think I keep talking. I always go back to sidewinders, because everybody's like, "Oh man, did you see that sidewinder?" And I am a stat guy. I track all this stuff, and I can tell you, I think Vancouver, Bondi takes a cross at the back space and ends up hitting the sidewinder over like 60 to 65 yards. It ends up being the assist for our first goal. But I never see it, really. I never see this sidewinder. More often than not, he builds out of the back. More often than not, over 40 to 45 yards. We complete like 100% of our throws. And anytime that we start bringing out this sidewinder, I can tell you that the numbers are not that effective. So I'm not real sure. Besides some of the Instagram guys, like how this sidewinder is real valuable. But,
well, that was a conversation that I actually had with Nicky when I was at RSL, because Nicky sidelined everything. He would sidewinder, a 15-yard pass. I'm like, what are you doing? Why don't you ever roll that or throw that? He's like, more I can sidewinder.
It looks cool.
I'm like,
okay.
I actually had to show like our goalkeepers. I was like, I put up like little mini goals, and I was just like, okay, I want you to sideline the ball into that goal. Go ahead, do it. Miss. Now I want you to throw the ball into the goal. Make it. I was like, you see my point here, kind of like. What's going on?
Nicky, in fairness to Nicky was pretty doggone good at it. So no way I was going to change him.
Nicky was incredible. Nicky was incredible. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys
what they want.
That's right.
There you go. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys taking all this time today. Honestly, Kevin, obviously you're in the middle of the season right now, and you got to head out to, I think, New England tomorrow, right? You guys have New England?
Yeah, we're heading to New England, and then we're off to Toronto, so a little road swing.
Nice.
Oh, look at that road swing right there. If anybody wants to connect with you directly, where's the best place to connect? Have you shut down
probably LinkedIn? Yeah, probably LinkedIn.
Yeah, because you shut down your social medias, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I tried to spend a little bit more time with the family and a little bit less time scrolling through my feeds. So I've got my LinkedIn still set up, but beyond that, it's pretty dead right now on the social media front for me.
Well, you still have your Union account. If you ever want to start posting and engaging there, you can still post over there. I think you have even
that might be the
blue
deal.
check mark there. You got a blue check.
Cool.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I think it's light brown, but that's okay.
Okay, light brown, whatever. Saskia knows because she probably has the app open right now. And speaking of the union, guys, if you want to check out upcoming webinars and courses on the union sports, register and subscribe right over here. Here is the link right there, where there's actually an e-course right now by the one and only Todd Hofford on there that you can purchase over there. So shout out to Todd Hofford for giving us a plethora of content right over there. We've also got another webinar coming up with Itzik Rappaport, who gave 7 questions, I think, today. And he apologizes for hijacking the show with mental questions, but I think they were relevant. We love it. So you can always do that. And Todd, if people want to connect with you outside of that, I think you have a union account too. You can start DMing him there too.
Yeah, I do. I'm maybe one step ahead of Kevin, where I actually have social media, but I'm awful on it. So I'm maybe a little better, but not much. I'm really, really bad at it. So. Oh
my gosh, guys! And obviously, if you want to reach out to us, guys, you can reach out to Saskia Weber's traditional social media is blowing up now, because I just saw you were doing what were you doing? A thing for birdies for Angel City yesterday.
A little commercial.
Guess that's what happens when you get the cover of USA Today. I guess in the sports section, I guess that's what happens. You get these opportunities right there. Or guys, you can reach out to us for a guest suggestion, topic suggestion at contact@inside18media.com or at Goalkeeper Podcast on all socials, including the Union Sports. I've been telling people, if you want to DM, start DMing on the Union Sports. We are checking it consistently. Start engaging, start creating over there, start sharing with people out there. Anything else I'm missing? Oh, at Michael Magid, if you want to reach out to me directly. Saskia's like, all right, let's wrap this. Let's get this going. We're done.
Hey, thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Clapping. Awesome session.
Thanks
for sure, guys. All right, that's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.